Picture this. It's shortly before nightfall. The light is fading over Tupelo, Mississippi. Families are settling in. The day is winding down. Just a typical, quiet evening. But what the historical records tell us is absolutely chilling. No one in this community could possibly anticipate the sheer scale of the horror lurking right there in the darkening clouds. Let's explore those final, fleeting moments of calm before the disaster struck in this explainer on the fury of the Tupelo gale.
Look at the agonizing timeline of this event, from shortly before nightfall right up to impact. The single most terrifying aspect of the Tupelo gale? It's the compression of time. We're talking about a disaster that unfolded in mere seconds. Literally, seconds. Think about that for a moment. Decades of community building, generations of established lives, all confronted with a cataclysm that gave them absolutely zero time to react. There wasn't some drawn-out warning or hours of preparation. Seconds. That is all it took for the entire reality of Tupelo to be rewritten forever.
Now, the historical accounts are unequivocal about the extreme force involved here. This tornado didn't just casually roll into town. It slammed into Tupelo with a level of violence that's hard to even wrap your head around. This wasn't just a storm with some strong wind gusts knocking off loose shingles, right? We're talking about an immediate, violent transfer of kinetic energy that the town's infrastructure just could not withstand. The unprecedented power of this atmospheric event was absolute, and it arrived in a flash. On the ground, this extreme force met total structural failure. Buildings didn't just fall over, they literally exploded apart. The extreme pressure differentials caused roofs to just vanish completely into the sky. Walls collapsed inward, windows shattered instantly. In a fraction of a heartbeat, the very barriers that were supposed to protect these families from the raging storm outside, they were entirely erased. And the destruction just compounded on itself incredibly fast. First, entire houses were lifted directly off their foundations. It's like the laws of gravity just completely failed against the sheer updraft of this gale. Then, as those homes disintegrated in the air, a terrifying secondary threat emerged. Everyday heavy objects suddenly became deadly missiles. Wooden boards, heavy bricks, sheets of metal, and jagged glass flying through the air at unimaginable speeds. The town's own infrastructure was quite literally weaponized against its people.
But beyond the splintered wood and crushed brick, there was an unimaginable human toll. Families were separated. The extreme physics of this vortex meant that people were thrown violently across rooms while their homes were literally dissolving around them. In that absolute chaos, families were torn from one another. They simply couldn't hold on, as their safe havens turned into these unpredictable, violent vortexes.
There's one line from the historical record that really lays bare the absolute helplessness of the victims. It reads, "Children disappeared into darkness and debris." It's absolutely heartbreaking to think about. In this violent, swirling mess, parents were ripped away from their children, the debris just swallowed them up, and, remember, the daylight was already fading, which only compounded the sheer, suffocating terror of that moment.
And the auditory reality of this disaster, it was just as suffocating as the physical destruction. You have this terrifying contrast, the screams of the victims versus the roar of the tornado. Desperate screams for help, people calling out for their separated family members. All of it was entirely swallowed up by the deafening roar of the storm. The sheer volume created this terrifying isolation chamber. Even if someone was mere feet away, their cries for salvation just couldn't be heard.
Just when the situation felt like it couldn't possibly grow any more desperate, the town was plunged into complete chaos as the modern grid surrendered entirely. Electric lines snapped in half, streetlights failed. Tupelo was suddenly thrust into pitch-black darkness. So, survivors who were already robbed of their hearing by the deafening wind were now robbed of their sight. They were trapped in the ruins, surrounded by deadly debris, and utterly blind.
If we zoom out to a macro level, we can see that the devastation was just total. Every single community pillar was left devastated or destroyed. Neighborhoods that had stood for generations? Gone. Schools, businesses, churches, all left in ruins. This wasn't just a severe weather event, folks. It was an existential blow that wiped out the cultural, spiritual, and economic foundations of this society, all at the exact same time.
The sheer speed and totality of this event almost defies human comprehension. It's captured so hauntingly by one survivor's witness account. They said, "One moment a house stood proudly, the next moment it was gone, reduced to scattered debris. There was no slow transition here. It was a binary shift, literally flipping a switch from a proud, standing community right into absolute ruin." Section 12. A deadly path. The tornado showed little mercy. Ultimately, these historical records leave us to reflect on the cold, unfeeling power of nature and just how terrifyingly fast life can be entirely upended. It really leaves you with a haunting question to think about. What would you do if the world you knew and everything you held dear vanished into darkness and debris in a matter of seconds?